brothers by Johann Bernoulli. If you imagine like a chute and there's a particle moving down a chute being pulled by gravity, what's the path of the chute that connects 2 points so that it goes from point A to point B in the shortest amount of time?
I think what I like most about this problem is that it's relatively easy to describe qualitatively what you're going for. You want the path to be short, something like a straight line, but you want the object to get going fast, which requires starting steeply, and that adds length to your line. But making this quantitative and actually finding the balance with a specific curve, it's not at all obvious and makes for a really interesting problem.
It is. It's a really interesting thing. I mean, most people, when they first hear it, assume that the shortest path will give the shortest time, that the straight line is the best. But as you say, it can help to build up some steam by rolling straight down at first, or not necessarily rolling. I mean, you could picture it sliding. That doesn't really matter how we phrase it. But so Galileo had thought about this himself much earlier than Johann Bernoulli in 1638. And Galileo thought that an arc of a circle would be the best thing. So he had the idea that a bit of curvature might help.
And it turns out that the arc of the circle is not the right answer. It's good, but there are better solutions. And the history of real solutions starts with Johann Bernoulli posing this as a challenge.
So that's then in June of 1696. And he posed it as a challenge really to the mathematical world at that time. For him, that meant the mathematicians of Europe. And in particular, he was very concerned to show off that he was smarter than his brother, So he had a brother, Jacob, and the two of them were quite bitter rivals, actually, both tremendous mathematicians. But Johann Bernoulli fancied himself the greatest mathematician of his era, not just better than his brother, but I think he thought that he might be better than Leibniz, who was alive at the time, and Isaac Newton, who was by then sort of an old man, more or less retired from doing math. Newton was the warden of the mint, be something like Secretary of the Treasury nowadays.
And Newton shows him up, right? He stays up all night and solves it, even though it took Johann Bernoulli 2 weeks to solve.
Right. That's the great story, that Newton was shown the problem, wasn't really pleased to be challenged, especially by somebody that he considered beneath him. He considered pretty much everybody beneath him. But yeah, Newton stayed up all night, solved it, and then sent it in anonymously to the Philosophical Transactions, the journal at the time. And it was published anonymously. And so Newton complained in a letter to a friend of his. He said, "I do not love to be dunned and teased by foreigners about mathematical things." So he didn't enjoy this challenge, but he did solve it. The famous legend is that Johann Bernoulli, on seeing this anonymous solution, said, "I recognize the lion by his claw." I don't know if that's true, but it's a great story. Everyone loves to tell that story.
And I suspect part of the reason that